Good evening and welcome to our midweek Bible moment here at the Fulton Church of Christ. We appreciate you joining us here this afternoon as we spend just a brief moment going over our announcements and having a brief devotional thought before we for your midweek Bible moment. Today for our sick, a few announcements that we have are sick. Continue to remember Miss Linda Watson, and she is still at home. She is waiting to be transferred to Vanderbilt as soon as they have a position or a spot open for her. So continue to remember her in your prayers. Continue to remember Jackie Brumley. This is a sister, Molly Smith. She is in the hospital in Columbus. Remember her in your prayers. Also remember Sean Cone. This is a son-in-law of Glenn and Jan Hughes. We've been praying for him. He's had cancer. He was supposed to have surgery tomorrow in Houston at MD Anderson. However, there's been some things have come up that have caused a delay. He's going to have to wait a little bit for that surgery. So they've asked us to remember them in our prayers as they await that change and await that delay to see how this can be solved. Also continue to remember A. Claire Watson, remember Linda Hood as she continues to go through her test. Remember Marilyn Leary as she continues to go through her rehab. Remember Linda Weigel Center, she has been diagnosed with cancer. And also continue to remember Randy Holly. He was admitted to the hospital last week at the ER, but they think it was just exhaustion. So continue to remember him in our prayers and his family as well. I believe that's all the sick that we have. Remember our Zoom classes, teenagers meet on Monday night at 7:30. Our FBI class will meet till November 10th at 7 p.m. Then remember on Wednesday nights, our fifth grade and below classes will meet at 6 p.m. And then also on Wednesday night, after this devotional is over, we'll have our Wednesday night adult Bible study at 7 p.m. So I encourage you, if you can, to tune in to that. You can find that on Zoom and also find that on YouTube and Facebook. So anywhere you can find that, I'm sure you'll be blessed by that. Also remember tomorrow, the 21st Century Global Missions class will be at 10 a.m. They'll continue studying their lessons about Colossians. Also remember coming up in a few weeks, Gloucester Street Church of Christ will be having a gospel meeting with Jimmy Clark on November the 1st to November the 4th. Their times for Sunday worship will be 9 a.m. Sunday p.m. will be at 6 p.m. Their Bible class Sunday morning is 10:10. Then Monday to Wednesday they have a 7 p.m. Service. Those services will be at the church building as well as being live streamed. So if you're not wanting to venture out and wanting to be a part of the meeting, but you want to still see and hear Brother Jimmy Clark, you can do that virtually. So if you get a chance to take part of that, I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Also, this is a picture we have for our Pineville Food Drive. We've been doing this for the last few weeks. This is a little cart that we filled up with the few weeks we had, and with our membership being lower than usual just for the COVID and the concerns. We were happy with the amount of food we had. Like I say, Pineville come through yesterday, and they picked up this and picked up more. So we were glad to help out and glad everyone pitched in to help that be a great success this year again. Today, for our lesson, we are going to change what we've been talking about in a little bit. We're going to change sort of how we've been discussing this. And, we've been discussing about the election and about Christians and voting today. And for the next few weeks, I think we're going to take 3 weeks on this. We're going to talk about Jesus for president. What would the platform of the Messiah be? When we think about different men running for president and what they would run for, we look at what they run for, what they say they are, and who they say they are, and we should decide of why would we support them. And so we're going to ask the question today, why I would support Jesus for president. If Jesus was alive here today and he was preaching and he was going through his life, would we support him for president? Would we support him for any office? And we're going to talk about that idea of why we should support Jesus, and then that's going to bleed over into we need to look at the men we have who are running, the men and women who are running to take offices in this country, not just the presidency, but every other office, and ask, would they meet very similar qualifications? Would they meet very similar Christian qualifications for what it means to be a political candidate? And so with that in mind, we start by looking at this idea of why will we take Jesus? Well, number one, we could take Jesus because he was honest. Jesus was one that he couldn't be bought. In Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 through 10, we have we have the temptation of Jesus. And in the last temptation of Jesus, in those verse 8, again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said to him, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. You see, Jesus had an opportunity here that we sometimes don't understand in these temptations. We look at this as a temptation of Jesus of bowing down to Satan and how he stood up for Satan. But do you realize that Jesus had the opportunity to take the easy way, the simple way? All Jesus had to do was bow down before Satan, and he wouldn't have to go through the problems of his life. He wouldn't have had to deal with the people who tried to betray him, the people who were trying to ruin his reputation, the Pharisees and Sadducees and scribes. He wouldn't have had to worry about his apostles and Judas turning on him. Wouldn't have to worry about the other 12 or 11, running off and leaving him at his most desperate moment in the Garden of Eden. He wouldn't have had to go through that garden of crying out and of wondering, of praying to God to let this cup pass from me. He wouldn't have had to go to the cross. He could have had it all. Now, it wouldn't have been exactly as he has it now, but he could have got it the easy way if he would just bow down before Satan. And Satan said, if you'd bow down before me, I will give you all these things. I will give you the world. But Jesus knew that his mission couldn't be accomplished that way. He couldn't be accomplished that way, because then it wouldn't be the world for God. It would be the world for Satan. And so therefore Jesus says to him, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. You see, Jesus was an honest candidate, and at one, he couldn't be bought. The second thing about his honesty was he didn't play games with words. In Matthew chapter 21 and 22, you see the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes and all those different men trying to trip Jesus up. And over again, Jesus stood firm. Jesus plainly stated his position, where he stood, what he was going to do, and Jesus didn't play games with them. That day, that final week of Jesus' life, they tried to get him tripped up and tried in so many ways, but he didn't play any of their games. He was honest with them. He told them what they needed to know. He told them the truth. And he didn't try to persuade others and try to use manipulative ways to accomplish what he was seeking to do. The next thing about Jesus and his honesty is that Jesus didn't mince words. He didn't hold anything back. You see, Luke chapter 13 and verse 32, it says, that very hour some Pharisees came and said to him, get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you. See, they're trying to frighten Jesus. They tell him that Herod is out to kill him. Herod's out to get you. You better run away. And this was to show that Jesus was a convict, that Jesus was an enemy of the state. He was afraid of those in charge. But notice verse 32, and he said to them, Jesus spoke to the Pharisees. He says, go tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I finish my course. You see, Jesus says, go tell that fox, because he knows the Pharisees are working with Herod, and Herod is, as we would say, sly as a fox. He's crafty. He is manipulative. And Jesus said, go tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and work miracles today and tomorrow, and then the third day I finish my course. He's basically saying that I will do my work till my time is done. Then John 18, when Jesus is before Pilate, and Pilate is trying to find the charges for which the Jews have brought him up, and he's trying to find a way to bring him down. You remember Pilate asked that very famous question, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus says, it is as you say. And Pilate asked, are you a king? And Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. He tells him, my kingdom's not of this world. My kingdom's not here. For if it was, he said, my followers will be fighting you right now. He says, but my kingdom is not of this world. I have no threat to you physically, because mine is a spiritual kingdom. You see, Jesus didn't hold back his words. He didn't mince words. He didn't try to sugarcoat it. He told it as it honestly was. He was an honest man. And not only was he just honest with his enemies, and honest with those who stood against him, and honest with those around him, he was also a man who rebuked his friends. He rebuked those who were closest to him in Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 and 23. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on things of God, but on things of man. You see, what happens is Jesus tells his disciples what he's going to have to do. He's going to tell them he's going to go to Jerusalem and he's going to die. And so their answer is an answer we may have today. If I were to tell you, look, the next time you go to Memphis, you're going to die. Your life's going to be over. They're going to arrest you in Memphis and they're going to execute you. You know what my response to me, if you told me that, if you told me, hey man, next time you go to Memphis, this is going to happen to you, you know what I'd do? I wouldn't go to Memphis. I would go anywhere but Memphis. Why? Because I wanted to save my life. But Jesus, this is what Peter says. Peter says, Lord, no, we're not going to Jerusalem. Lord, if you're going to die in Jerusalem, we're going to avoid it with all that we can. And Jesus says, no. He says, don't do that to me, Peter. Notice, get behind me, Satan. See, he tells Peter that Peter's trying to hinder him. Peter's trying to keep him from doing what he wants to do. And what this shows of Jesus' honesty is that he was willing to rebuke his own friends. But he calls them a hindrance. He calls them a problem to him and not letting him accomplish his goal. But we know he accomplished that goal. You see, the number one reason why we can vote for Jesus as president was because he was an honest man. Honest above all else. And not only was he an honest man, the second point we're going to make today and be done is that he was no respecter of persons. He was not a respecter of persons. He didn't preach to one group and not another. He preached to all groups. He preached to anyone who would listen to him. Matter of fact, in describing the Messiah, he is described as being a preacher to the poor. Luke chapter 7 verse 22 says, And he answered them, Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, the poor have the good news, or have good news preached to them. Notice in that list of the blind are receiving sight, the lame walk, the lepers cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised. Those are miracles. Those are great things. But notice in that list is that the poor have the good news preached to them. Why? Well, when we go back to Luke chapter 4, verse 18, and speaking about what Jesus is going to do and quoting the Old Testament, we see this quote where it says, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, recovering the sight of the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed. You see, Luke quotes the Old Testament. He quotes the prophets. And he says that this is happening when the Spirit of the Lord has come. And basically what he's doing is Jesus says, go tell John what you see. And part of being the Messiah was that he would be a preacher to the poor. He would be one who would preach to the masses, one who would preach not just to the rich, not just to those who can contribute to him, not just those who can make him, assist him and help him, but he preached to the poor. And not only preached to the poor, he was a friend of the publicans and sinners. You ever thought about that for a second? That in the Bible, the New Testament, there was a group of people called by their fellow men sinners. I don't know about you, but I don't think that would go together well in our world today. I know it wouldn't. Imagine somebody calling somebody else a sinner. Oh, I'm not going to hang out with that group. They're just a bunch of sinners. And I'm not talking about the church people calling them that. I'm talking about the world, the people, all the people around calling them sinners and refusing to be with them. That's what's happening in the New Testament world. And Jesus is seen to be a friend of the publicans and sinners. The people, the religious elite, have nothing to do with. Yet Jesus was there. Notice what Matthew recorded, Matthew 11, verse 18 and 19. It says, For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Yet wisdom is justified by her deeds. You see, Jesus says, here's what's happening, and this is where John and Jesus were at, and this is how they were. This is how Jesus was. He was no respecter of persons. Because they said John came, and John didn't eat, John didn't drink, John didn't act like everybody else, and here they say he has a demon. He's demon-possessed. He's from Satan. But then Jesus comes and does the opposite. Jesus drinks, Jesus eats, he goes with the people, he interacts with them. And what do they say about him? They say he's a glutton and a drunkard. And they say he is a friend of tax collectors and sinners. You see, he says here that no matter what you do, the people are not going to be happy. There's somebody going to complain about it. John came one way, they complained about him. Jesus came another way, and they complained about him. Yet in the end, Jesus says, wisdom is justified by her deeds. Wisdom, walking in a way that is called by God, walking in a way that is proper, is justified by her deeds. Not by what people say or what people think, but by what they do. You see, Jesus showed himself to not be a respecter of persons. Then from there we can see Luke chapter 7, verses 36 through 50, that Jesus was a presence among the Pharisees. He was one who stood out. He wasn't like the rest of them. Notice what happens in Luke chapter 7. We're not going to read verse 36 to 50. We're going to read a part of it, though. Beginning verse 36 says, one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. And when he went into the Pharisee's house and reclined at a table, and behold, a woman of the city, who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought in an alabaster flask of ointment. And standing behind him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with ointment. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is. This is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus answering said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. And he answered, say it, teacher. And Jesus began to ask him about the forgiveness of sins. But notice Jesus' position here. Jesus is with this group of Pharisees, a religious elite. And this woman comes in, a woman of the city, a sinner, a prostitute. A woman who has been known, and her occupation is very well known among the people. And what does Jesus do? Did Jesus rebuke her? Did Jesus say, get away from me, you dirty woman? Get away from me. How dare you do that? You come into my presence? No. He allows her to do what she wants to do. He allows her to do this beautiful act of reverence, this beautiful act of service, where she washed his feet with her hair. And she washed his feet with her tears. She dumped this alabaster, this perfume on him. And when the Pharisees see this, all they can think about is, oh, if he was a good person, he wouldn't let this happen. If he were really a prophet. No, Jesus is showing them it takes more than just being harsh. It takes more than being a rebuker. Again, Jesus rebuked his friends. He would rebuke this woman for her sin. But before he could rebuke her, before he tried to correct her, he had to show her he cared for her. He loved her. He was concerned about it. And then from this verse, when Jesus understands what the Pharisee said in his heart, Jesus asked him a question. And he asked him about forgiveness. And he talks about which man would be better forgiven. The one who had a small debt or the one who had a huge debt? And the answer, of course, is the man with the huge debt would be more grateful, be more appreciative of what was given to him. And Jesus says this is the situation here. Simon had been forgiven a small debt, but the prostitute would have been forgiven a great debt because of her great sin. And so Jesus here allowed her to come to him. And Jesus demonstrates himself. He's not a respecter of persons. Just because the public, just because the community, just because people look down on someone, doesn't mean that Jesus is going to look down on them. He was a respecter. He was no respecter of persons, And finally, Jesus was no respecter of person in that he prized the young, the poor, the rich. He prized them all. In Mark chapter 10, we see the beautiful story of the rich young ruler who comes to Jesus. And comes and asks him, Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Or good teacher. And Jesus says, who's good but God? He says, have you kept the commandments? And again, he says, yes, I've kept them all from birth up. And some people say, well, he's not kept all of them because he appears to be a man of wealth, appears to be a man who covets. We don't know or not, but Jesus, knowing the man, speaks to him. And notice verse 21. This is where Jesus looks at him. And notice what it says here. And Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said to him, you lack one thing. Go sell all that you have and give it to the poor. and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. You see, Jesus tells this rich young ruler, again, he's rich, he's young. He doesn't say, well, just wait a few years and then you can have it. Just wait a few, go sow your wild oats and then you can come to. No, he tells him what he lacks. He doesn't tell the rich man, oh, whoa, hey, you can give me some of that money. Just come on and join my band of people. Come on and we'll use that money for good of the kingdom. And we'll use that to travel. And we'll use it for our expenses from your night. No. Look what Jesus does. Jesus looks at him. He loves him. And he loves him enough to tell him what he needs to do. Very few people can do that. Very few people have that talent to be able to look at someone and tell them. And again, I'm not talking about as God and knowing what's in our heart, but very few people have that respect that we can tell somebody, hey, look, your life's not right. Your life's not where it needs to be. And do it not out of spite, not out of jealousy, not to say, ha, you're not the person you thought you were. But to say it because you know I love you. And Jesus looked at him. He loved him. He loved him. He said, you lack one thing. There's one problem you've got, your things. He tells him, go sell all you have and give it to the poor. Give up your possessions and come follow me. Give them up and you'll have treasure in heaven. And I've heard some preachers and some church thinkers think about, well, would Jesus really have required this man to do that? I don't know. Some say he would, and some say, no, I don't. I think this was just a test, see if he would. But see, Jesus knew what the problem was. He didn't allow the rich man to get away with what was wrong with his heart. He was no respecter of persons to the rich, no respecter of persons to the young who hadn't learned, nor was he a respecter of the poor. Because notice what Jesus says. He doesn't say, hey, go sell all you have and you give it to Judas. Remember, Judas was the treasurer. He didn't say sell all you have and you bring it back to Judas, and Judas will use that money for our mission, for our trips, and we'll be set for a while. No. He showed his care for the poor. Why? Because he said, go take all you have, sell it, and give that money to the poor. Give it to the people who need it. Give it to the people who need assistance. And we're going to talk about that more next week, of what Jesus stood for. But for tonight, this is where we're going to stop. In seeing that Jesus was an honest man, and seeing that Jesus was no respecter of persons. Therefore, Jesus would make a great president. But above all that, he makes a great Messiah. And he makes a great ruler. Except he rules a kingdom not like the United States. He rules a kingdom not like any kingdom in this world. He rules a spiritual kingdom. A kingdom in which we can be a part of if we'll come follow him. Not that we cast a vote and say, oh, I think he's right. I believe he's right. I believe he's the best man. But saying, no, I know he's the best man. Because I know that he is the Son of God. And because I know that he's the Son of God, then I'll obey him. I'll follow him. He demands more than any ruler, any president, any king has ever demanded. But the reward is much greater. Tonight, I want to ask you, in your life, is Jesus the president of your life? Is Jesus the ruler of your heart? Are you loving him, obeying him, and following him in all that you do and all you say, all that's part of who you are? Are you being the person God has called you to be? If Jesus is not the president of your life, we encourage you to change your life so that he is. Realize that just as him, you need to be an honest person. You need to be a non-respecter of persons. That you need to realize that all people are delicate souls. All people are souls in need of a Savior. And then you realize that to be his follower, you have to obey him. Tonight, if Jesus is not the president of your life, I encourage you to change your life so that he is. And if there's anything you need, please let us know. You can contact us any of the ways we have available. We'd love to help you out however we can, either to become a Christian, to make Jesus that president, or if he was your president, but you've voted somebody else in, you've allowed Satan to come in and take over, come back and let Jesus come back. If he's not the president of your life, change your life tonight so that he is. I appreciate you being here with us tonight as we bring our session here to a close. As we usually do, we're going to end this time with a word of prayer. And in this prayer, we're going to remember those we know of that are sick, those that are on our list. Then after that, we'll be done for the evening. And again, remember we have our our kid class at 6 p.m. Then at 7 p.m. we have our adult class, and we hope to see you all then. But for now, let's go ahead and let's have a word of prayer. Dear Lord God, our Father, we're thankful for this day and all the blessings you've given us. We're thankful, Father, for all that we have in this life and all that is given to us. We're thankful, Father, for the blessings that come from you. We're thankful, Father, for your Son and the life that he lived, that life he gave on that cross to redeem us, to make us whole. We pray, Father, you'd help us. May we live lives that are right, that are holy, acceptable for you, so that one day, Father, we can have that great, glorious, and wonderful home with you in heaven. We pray now, Father, that you be with those that are sick. We're thankful, Father, for this avenue of prayer to come before you, asking for those that are physically sick, that you'll look after them, Father, as only you can. We pray, Father, that you be with Jackie Brumley. Look after her, Father, with her stay at the hospital. May everything be done for her, will be what's best for her, to help her to return home soon, Father, and just bless her. We also pray, Father, that you be with Linda Watson, help her with her issues, Father. May she be able to go to Vanderbilt soon, Father, and be able to help that to return to a more normal and natural lifestyle. We also pray, Father, that you be with Sean Cone. Look after him, Father, with his upcoming surgery. Pray that everything can be worked out for him, Father, and his family, that he'll be able to have that, and that'll be a success, and that'll help him with the best treatment possible. We also pray, Father, that you continue to be with Linda Hood, look after her, help her with her tests. Also be with Claire Watson, Father, as she prepares for her visits. Continue to be with Marion Leary in her rehab. Be with Linda Weigel Center, Father, with her cancer. Randy Holly with his health issues. Be with us again, Father, pray to be with all of them. Look after them as only you can. Be with those who are continually struggling with this virus. Be with those that are sick, as you'll give them the comfort and strength they need, Father, that they'll recover and return back to their more normal and natural lifestyle soon. We pray, Father, also to be with those that are spiritually sick, be with those who do not have you as the ruler and president of their life. May something be said or something done, Father, that will cause them to change their life and change their behavior so that they can be your children and they'll be your follower, Father, before it's too late. We again, Father, just pray that you go with us and watch over us in all that we do and in all that we say. And help us, Father, to always live lives that are right and acceptable for you. And pray, Father, that you'd help us that one day we'll be able to have that great, glorious home with you in heaven. And Father, we just ask all this in your precious Son's name. Amen. Again, I appreciate you being here. We look forward to seeing you hopefully at 7 o'clock. If not, we hope you're having a God-blessed week. Remember, Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we have our weekly worship service. We'd love to have you join us in person, or if you want to, you can find us here online. Other than that, we hope that you're having a good day and hope that everything's going well for you. And again, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call, email, text us. Let us know. We'll help you however we can. But until then, we hope again you're having a God-blessed day, and we hope to see you again very soon. Bye.